I'm Rob. Thanks for stopping by my channel. Today we are going to be building something. We're going to be building lots of things. And I'm not talking about Minecraft. I'm talking about chords specifically. This is the chord structure episode. I'm so excited to get into this because, chords are really the foundation of songs. I hope that you had the chance to check out the previous video on intervals because it'll be critical in understanding what's going on here. If not, hit pause and go back and take a look. Okay, chord structure. I'm sure that there are a few of you students in here that don't play chordal instruments and you totally skated your way through this part of music theory classes by the seat of your pants. Maybe you don't know a single thing about this stuff and you want to dip your toes in the water. Well, don't worry. The water's warm today, friends. I'm here to make this super easy and user-friendly for you. Many teachers just have a way of complicating this stuff when it's really not necessary. Chord structure is really kind of a concept. It's sort of something that's set in stone, but it's loose. It's malleable. It adds all the color to your tone that you could possibly imagine. But there is a basic framework to it all. So previously in the intervals video, we talked about the distance between two notes. Now we're going to start stacking these intervals and really start to paint the musical canvas here. Okay, so let's start off first with a very simple chord, pretty much the basis of all rock, the power chord. Technically, I don't even know if it's a chord since it only has two notes, but you know what? When you rock, you really don't need all that other fancy nonsense. You just let it rip. Ooh, that's not gonna work. So that was a power chord. A power chord consists of a unison note and a perfect fifth. You can fatten this up a little bit by adding the octave right below the perfect fifth. There's your unison note. I'm in A, by the way. There's your perfect fifth. If you want to add the octave, right here with your pinky below the perfect fifth on the D string. Alright, so that was kind of the theme for 2001 Space Odyssey, just by doing the power chord with the octave on there, and a couple other notes. I can't even begin to name the overwhelming number of songs that just use power chords. I mean, seriously, almost every classic and modern rock or pop song uses power chords. Since we're talking about three-note chords in this video, we'll go ahead and move on to that. I just wanted to provide you with an example since power chords are used so frequently in music. And it truly is something that you need to know, as simple as it may be. Also, the structure in a power chord leads us into our three-note chords. Alright, so let's talk about three-note chords, or triads, which are the standard chord in music. The reason that triads are important is because they introduce the element of major and minor. A major chord is just a power chord with a major third added to it. A minor chord is a power chord with, guess what? A minor third added to it. So in a major chord you have a root, a major third, and a perfect fifth. In a minor chord you have your root or your unison note, a minor third, and a perfect fifth. So it's important to note that there are two other chord families in the mix that you should know about, other than major and minor chords. I'll touch on these at some point, but not so much for this video. Basically, they affect the perfect fifth. We have diminished triads and augmented triads. The diminished triad has a root, a minor third, and a flatted fifth. The augmented triad has the root, a major third, and a sharp five, which is also the minor sixth. Also, diminished and augmented chords have a symmetrical quality to them in terms of the distance between the notes from the root to the octave, which I think is pretty cool. Don't worry about these too much at this point. I just wanted to throw these out there since they are a major part of chord structure as a whole. Okay, so let's just check out a few major and minor chords. Today, let's just keep it in C to keep it simple, but please take the time to check these out in other keys. Let's just start off with a basic C chord that everybody's taught. Down in the root position, the old cowboy chords, so they call them. So a C major chord is going to be made up of a root note, a unison note, a major third, and a perfect fifth. In the key of C, those notes are C, E, and G. E being your major third, G being your perfect fifth. If you don't know where your notes are, check out my previous video on finding your way around the fretboard. Okay, so here is your basic C cowboy chord. We pretty much all know that one. How do I make that into a minor chord? I drop the major third interval down to a half step. So we're going to be playing E flat the minor third. There's your C right there. There's your major third, your E. We're gonna be dropping this down E flat. Now, you're gonna be playing Twister on the fretboard with your fingers here, trying to play this chord. Oh, it's very difficult to get that to ring out. So what do I do in this case if I want to play a C minor? Well, I'm gonna do the C bar chord shape with C based off the 5th string root. That note is right here at the 3rd fret, 5th string. We're playing our A shape right there. There's the A. You're playing C right there. And your major third is going to be up here on the B string. That's going to be your E note. Okay, so if I want to make that minor, I just drop that a fret. All right, there's your bar chord. Major, minor. Okay, so say that I want to do it based off of the 6th string root. Well, all I do is I play the E shape based off the 6th string root on the 8th fret. That's your C right there. There's 5th string, 6th string. And we're just going to be playing this E shape right up here. So there is my C major chord. How do I make that minor? I drop the third from a major third down to a minor third. Where's my third at? It's going to be right here. It's going to be on the G string at the 9th fret. Oh, wrong note. Okay. Major, minor. All right, so let's just review that real quick. 5th string root, C major, C minor. We're doing bar chords here. Then 6th string root, C major, C minor in the bar chord shape. C major, C minor, C major, C minor. Now these intervals are going to be kind of rearranged depending on where you play them, but ultimately it only takes 3 notes to make this chord. A C, E, and G for a C major chord, and a C, E flat, and a G for a C minor chord. So that gives you some options. All right, boom. Now you have all your chords memorized. You don't need to know anymore, right? Well, maybe. However, you might want to take things a step further and sprinkle a little extra seasoning into this sauce of basic triads. We're going to be adding a 4th note into the mix, and that will be your 7th. Learning and playing your 7th chords really adds some tone colorization to all of these chords here. Not only are 7th chords used all over jazz, funk, soul, they're also used quite a bit in pop music, just because of their pleasing harmonization. Some 7th chords might even imply that a chord change or a resolution to a chord progression may be on the horizon. Okay, so here are your 7th chords in C. You have your major 7th, your minor 7th, your dominant 7th, fully and half diminished 7ths, and your augmented 7ths. For now, I just focus on learning the first 3 since they're used the majority of the time. So here's how it's broken down. All right, so I'm just gonna segue into a little story here real quick. When I was a young lad, approximately the age of 11 or 12, I was at home listening to the radio. See, I'd already been playing guitar for a few years at that point, just kind of by ear. I was really enjoying a lot of guitar-driven alternative rock from the early 90s at that point. I mean, that's my era. All of a sudden in this song on the radio, I hear this incredibly pleasing chord. It was ringing out with some nice little clicking beats behind it. It was Under the Bridge by Red Hot Chili Peppers. I was hooked to that sound. A little bit to the band, but mostly that chord. Ooh, that chord. It just sounded so sweet. It cut through me like a hot knife through butter. It was the major 7th chord. Basically, a major 7th chord is pretty much just like a major chord. That was an E, by the way. Only you drop the octave a half a step to the major 7th note. Okay, and if I was to do that down in C, let's just stick to the 5th string root here. It's going to be at the 3rd fret. And that is your basic A shape. There's your octave right there. We just drop that a half step or a fret. And then we add the rest of the chord. So it's a root, a major 3rd, a perfect 5th, and a major 7th. There's your major 7th chord. Okay, let's move on to the minor 7th chord. So a minor 7th chord is built from a root or unison note, your minor 3rd, perfect 5th, and a minor 7th. I like this chord, basically because it's incredibly easy to play. You can funk to it. I was playing that in C, so we're going to be based off the 6th string root, C. That's going to be at the 8th fret. All right, now if we remember our regular minor chord right there, if I was to spell that out, going from the low string to the high string, it'd be 8, 10, 10, 8, 8, 8. Now all we do here, we drop our octave a whole step. That's going to be 2 frets. There's our octave. And I just kind of omit this string. I cover it so it doesn't ring out, the 5th string. All right, and if I was to play that down based off the 5th string root, it's going to be C at the 3rd fret, 5th string. Here's our minor chord. Starting from the 5th string and moving up, it's going to be 3, 5, 5, 4, 3. And what do? Drop the octave a whole step. There's your octave right here. Okay, moving on to the dominant 7th chord. This chord is really kind of the basic rock, blues, jazz, funk. There are songs that only use dominant 7th chords throughout the entire song. A lot of times though, you'll hear the dominant 7th preceding a chord change. Kind of lets us know that something's coming. All right, so let's go ahead and just play it on the 5th string root here, starting off with just the regular major chord. Now, a dominant 7th chord is going to be made up of a root note, a major 3rd, a perfect 5th, and a minor 7th. So it has this sound to it. There's your minor 7th. It's basically a major chord with a minor 7th. I can also play it with just 3 notes. So let me show you what that looks like. Kind of have this triangle shape. So starting from the 5th string, 3rd fret, 4th string, 2nd fret, 3rd string, 3rd fret. I can use that shape based off the low E string right down here. It's going to be starting on the low E string, 8th fret, 7th fret on the A string, 8th fret on the D string. All right, you want to learn a song that shows you what you can do by moving the 7ths around? Learn the song Something by the Beatles. It's off their Abbey Road album. The resources are out there. If you haven't heard that song or album, what are you doing with your life? I mean, seriously. If that's the case, this is basically an emergency right here. Pause this video right now and go listen to that entire album front to back. That is your homework for this week. Forget about chord structure. Listen to Abbey Road right now because it's possibly the GOAT of all albums. After you're done with that, forget that I said forget about learning about chord structure and learn your 7th chords. Okay, I think that's a good start for chord structure, at least for this introductory video. Maybe down the road we'll dive deeper into diminished and augmented chords, and then you have your extensions such as 9ths and 11ths and 13ths, and that all leads into polychords. I showed you examples of some bar chords here. Learn those and see how they work and use them in your songs. At the same time, keep building up your finger strength so you can play the bar chords effectively. Okay, with bar chords, it's all about knowing your roots on the bottom two strings and knowing your E and A shapes with the variations on the thirds, fifths, and sevenths. You don't need to use all 6 strings, but play them however they're comfortable to you. 7th chords and 9th chords are doable for all guitarists, I think. This stuff can get really deep, but oh does it sound so sweet. If you want to hear some good examples of some of these extended chords and polychords, maybe check out some Herbie Hancock, some Joe Pass, or some Steely Dan, just to name a few. I mean, there are a lot of artists that use this stuff just so tastefully. Either way, learning chord structure is crucial to learning about how music works. Even if you're a vocalist or a single note instrument, get to know your roots, your thirds, your fifths, and your sevenths, and get to know how these chords are all built. This will only help you to hear more tones in your mind. When you hear one single note, you can use them with your arpeggios, basically a fancy way of saying play a chord one single note at a time. Chord structure is just another cornerstone in the foundation of learning music. I encourage you to learn more about this stuff because learning chord structure truly helps you with everything in music, if you want to learn stuff that's a level deeper than just the surface level. Alright, I want to thank you for sticking around and learning about chord structures today. I'm positive that by learning and practicing this stuff, you'll gain a better understanding of how music works. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more videos on basic music theory and guitar coming down the pipeline. I'd love to read your comments and I'd love to hear your feedback, so feel free to ask any questions or simply say hi. Tell me in the comments down below, what is your favorite chord? Major 7th chord's my favorite chord, definitely. I'm also a big fan of 9th chords. I also really like diminished chords. Okay, I like all chords. Alright, I like chords. Alright, if you want to learn more, please tune in my next video in this series, which will be on chord progressions. Oh boy, is this going to be a mind blower for you. We are going to get into it, and you might just learn something new about a song that you've heard a million times before, or many songs for that matter. Again, thanks for hanging out with me today, and making it to the end of this video. Keep practicing and learning, and definitely keep being awesome. I'll see you next time, friends.